Ask Reddit by new immediate quarter. What's the weirdest thing you've ever seen in someone else's home? This guy's toilet was open in the living room without walls, panels or anything to keep your privacy. He was using it freely and was expecting people to do the same. I have recurring anxiety dreams with just this scenario. Went to a buddy's house and he had a deer in the living room eating a bowl of dog food. He said they rescued it as a fawn and raised it alongside their dogs. I had a friend in the same situation. Deer lived in the house, ate dog food, and even slept on the couch. I house sat for them once and it was wild seeing a full-grown deer laying on a bed with his head on a pillow. This guy I briefly dated asked me to come his apartment for the first time. He had a huge dog cage in his living room. I asked if he had a dog and he said no. It was so creepy. He was being cagey about it. A guy I dated about 15 years ago lived in a ramshackle old historic home that had not been properly maintained. It would have been lovely if it weren't crumbling and full of mold, and probably a shitload of lead paint as well. The unfinished stone basement had a windowless dungeon in the far back corner, with raw stone walls, no lighting, and a big soundproof door that only locked from the outside. The weirdest part is that he had a low-functioning alcoholic friend who paid him $100 a month to sleep down there. That house was a soap opera of weirdness. In this economy, I'd sleep in a dungeon for $100 a month. Assuming I still have Wi-Fi, anyway. In 6 months I could put a down payment on a house with what I'd saved. Their front room had 3 large padlocks on it, which were carefully removed so we could look into, but not enter, the room. Every piece of furniture was covered in thick plastic, along with the carpet. They didn't use the room, ever. The room was sealed at all times except for when visitors came round, where they would be shown the room once and once only. The family members were not allowed into the room either. I asked if they'd recently had the room furnished and was told no, it had been like this for over 10 years. What were you doing at Dexter's house? A pretty successful friend of mine has a spare bedroom in her house. No furniture or anything in it. It's just the laundry room. As in, when she does laundry, her kids, her boyfriends, it just gets thrown onto the 6 feet by 4 feet tall pile in the room, and when someone wants something they just dig it out. No folding laundry and putting it away. Just the pile. That's Boweto. When I was very young, my dad was planning to purchase an unremarkable sedan and we went to this veritable mansion to pick it up. The owner let us into this sitting room that was filled with rich people's stuff, fancy furniture and whatnot. As a child, the thing that caught my morbid curiosity was the matching set of 4 end tables made of elephant legs, complete with toenails. He saw my curiosity and explained to me that 2 were from a male, and 2 were from a female, and how to tell the difference via the toenails, and 2 were African, and 2 were Asian. I just nodded in understanding, but it made me very uncomfortable. I enjoyed your book, The Silence of the Elephants. An aquarium full of massive hissing cockroaches. No joke, I have one of those at work. At a house party, I stumbled upon a small door that led to a room filled with mannequins in various poses. The homeowner was a fashion designer, but walking into that dimly lit room without warning was a scene straight out of a horror movie. A friend of mine mentioned having 3 female mannequins one time, specifying that only one had a head. They later came out as trans, which was honestly the least creepy way for things to resolve. Not seen but heard. My friend's mom told him to masturbate later today, just casually, like it was a regular thing to say to your kids. He was just like, yeah sure. Lunchtime, kids. I made some jelly sandwiches and sliced up some cantaloupe. I figured you could eat a little food and then maybe play with your cock and balls for a while. On a house sitting job, I found a room that was entirely a home office, but for cats. Complete with tiny desks, chairs, and even a little water cooler. The cats seemed to take their work very seriously. Volunteer FFEMT 30 plus years ago, went on a call for a possible heart attack. Patient victim was in a back room of his house. Widowed. Lived alone. Kept to himself. Neighbors called in a welfare check. Found him on the floor, DRT, dead right there. Wearing a complete WWII Nazi uniform, in the room set up as an Nazi shrine. Yep. Nazi flag, painting of Der Führer, and regalia all over the room. And me with Jewish heritage, standing in the middle of it all giggling hysterically. He took the Hitler cosplay a bit too far. Senior year in college, a couple relocating and selling their car. Their walls had huge photos of her in crazy nude poses and close-ups of straight up porn. I had a hard time talking about the car. Ended up not buying it. Reminds me of the time my buddy was looking to buy a couch on Craigslist and he goes to pick one up and Emily Addison was the one selling it. Pornster, if you don't know. He called me and was freaking out and all I could say was don't buy that couch. He bought that couch. A friend had a collection of preserved animals in jars. Everything from spiders to larger mammals. They were a biologist, but their living room felt more like a mad scientist's lab. I went to a co-worker's apartment once, and she has a picture of us two together. She said she took that selfie a year ago but I don't remember it. I wonder if she has photos with all your co-workers and puts out the correct one based on who is visiting. My career was as a social worker and I got to meet some pretty interesting people and see their homes. I'd say I had two favorites. One was a sweet old lady who had put foil on the walls of her main living space and had lots of pink plastic flowers as decoration. It really was rather beautiful. Another man had two baby grand pianos in his living room and was able to play them. I love it when people march to their own drama. When I was a young boy, my family would always go to a certain town for my dad's side family reunion. We would often stop at yard sales to buy whatever we deem fit. At this random stranger's house, cause he had a yard sale. And I had to use the bathroom and I went inside his house and as I turned into his living room. His living room was a shrine dedicated to the Ku Klux Klan. He even had pictures of him with the Grand Wizard. Turns out this 80-year-old man was a high-ranking member of the Klan. When I was a young boy, my father took me into the city to see the Ku Klux Klan. A body in-home funeral and apparently was tradition to sit the deceased in a chair in the home and continue as if he were alive. I have questions. Once saw a life-sized giraffe statue in a living room. The ceiling was high enough to accommodate it, and the owners dressed it up according to seasons. Christmas was particularly memorable with the giraffe wearing a Santa hat. They let the dogs and cats into the basement to go to the bathroom even though they had a fenced-in backyard. The whole house smelled, even the kids when they went to school. That sounds like a mental health issue. Poor kids. Visited a friend's house and found an entire room dedicated to clown memorabilia. Dolls, paintings, figurines, you name it. It was both impressive and terrifying, especially since some of the dolls' eyes seemed to follow you. A lit shelf of dildos in their apartment. They claimed they are unused, they like to collect funny ones. I seen people collect knives and guns on display, and in the scheme of things if people collected more dildos instead, maybe it would be a better country. Better country. That would have to be the 3-story high zipline fire escape. That's not weird, that's awesome. My own house as a kid. The center of the house had a floor made of loose rocks with wooden boardwalks going across it, connecting rooms. It had a really steep staircase to loft that had a handrail made of rope. Also it had a Pizza Hut roof. You got pictures? This is fascinating. This dude must have killed one of every animal that would have been on Noah's Arch. He had giraffes, lions, a rhino, zebra, bears, yeti, mountain goat, house cat, you name it. Blew my mind the amount of time and money this dude dumped into pointlessly killing shit. I'm all for hunting if you are going to eat it or if it's to thin herds, but sport hunting shouldn't be a thing. A yeti, but not a chupacabras?